Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. We're going to talk about happy accidents. I am here with humor and mental health expert Leigh Anne Jasheway. Wait, Joshua. So
I'll
she
get it.
told me, yeah, she told me a little thing about the reindeer song and how that's a good way to help remember her last name. Do you want to share that real quick with the audience so that we ingrain your name into their brains?
It's just, from the night before Christmas where Santa says, dash away, dash away, dash away all. Well, my name is not Jasheway, so it's Joshua, Joshua, Joshua all.
Joshua.
It might even be more confusing, but I like
it. Well, I just love the idea that I'm already thinking of Santa Claus and good times with you.
it. If our noses get red later, we'll know why.
Okay. So you are a humor and mental health expert, and that probably is like, what the hell is that for a lot of people? Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you actually do?
Oh, well, it depends day to day, but basically, I have been for the past 28 years, even though I'm only 37. I started in utero. I have worked with organizations and disorganizations on how to use laughter and play as tools for their employees to manage their stress and deal with conflict and change. Those are the primary issues that I've talked around. I have also written 28 books, many of them dealing with stress, in particular, anxiety and depression, and how to apply laughter and play to those to try not to get into that pit of despair that a lot of times we get into if we're not experiencing enough fun in our lives. And as adults, we have so many voices that say, grow up, get serious, act your age. That's not funny. And so we have to battle those in order to be able to manage our stress using our sense of humor.
Yes.
So
And
that's kind of in a
play. Yeah.
nutshell.
Yeah, and play and joy and laughter is so incredibly important. You can't be serious all the time. And, everybody, so many of my clients come to me and they're like, I just want to be happy. So you can start by laughing a little, loosen up.
Right. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot in my presentations is the average American 5-year-old child laughs between 150 and 200 times a day. And the average adult is lucky to get 15. And
Wow.
if you consider that laughter, and we can talk about this a little bit, that laughter is a survival tool and we're doing it so very infrequently, we really need to be more in touch with that inner child that understood the value of silliness and nonsense and just expressing yourself through laughter and play.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, when you have those days where every single thing goes wrong and you get stacked up. This thing went wrong. Oh, this was horrible. This was horrible. And there comes this breaking point when it's like, oh, well, what next is going to go wrong? And it starts to become hilarious.
Right.
And at
Well,
and that at that point you sort of let go of the stress of it and you start to roll with it and you have a good time, but it takes most adults like 10 items or something, some number. I'm making up story, making
well,
up stats, but yeah.
one of the things I talk about is if you wait too long to find the laughter, you're actually causing yourself more physiological and mental damage. And so the goal is to, what can I do to not wait so long? I always say that the amount of time between when something moderately stressful, so like your camera doesn't work, since that was my experience last week, the amount of time between when that happens and when you can laugh at it is the amount of time you choose to be miserable. Because there's nothing inherently stressful about it other than you've got to fix it. And, we need to save our stress for things that are truly stressful. Like if you're living in Florida in a hurricane, that's a real stressor. It's not a
Right.
real stressor if you can't find your brand of coffee. But a lot of us tend to treat those things the same, and they're just not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I could go on for hours about what's happening in the unconscious mind and all of that, and all the triggers and the anchors in your nervous system, and blah, 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 all this stuff that I help my clients unwind. But I want to get to how you became the wolf, how you landed and found your way into this unusual career. And it started by accident. I know
It did.
this.
It did
So
start
tell
by
us
accident.
tell us a little bit about how you found comedy and humor.
Okay, so I was the director of a wellness program for a major university, and I'd been there for 10 years. And if you know what wellness is, you know it's basically you need to eat better, you need to get more exercise, you need to take care of your mental health. It's the same message all the time. And I'd been doing it for 10 years to the same people, so I was getting a little bored. I was also getting a little divorced. It was my first divorce, and so I was a little stressed. So I went to therapy twice because that's all my HMO would cover. And my therapist said, "You need to learn how to have fun." And that was like a real eye opener for me because my parents got divorced when I was young, and I had to be mom in between stepmothers. And so I grew up really fast. And so when she said, "You need to learn how to have fun," I thought, I don't know how to do that. And so I got a community college catalog, and I said, I will just randomly choose a class and I will take it because I didn't trust myself. I would have chosen a class like statistics because I love math, but that wouldn't bring me joy probably. And so I just went randomly, and I landed on a stand up comedy class. I had been to a comedy show. I knew a couple of the major comedians in the world, like George Carlin, for example, but I was not the kind of person who walks in or listen to comedy. I am, is we people listen to comedy on Al. Took the class, and it changed everything because I discovered that if you can take a headline, which is what we were doing, and find comedy in that, that you could take your life and find comedy in that. And so I immediately started doing stand up. And I also took those comedy skills into my job. And so I started using comedy as an approach to getting people to exercise more. We made our messaging funny. We created a troupe of people. There was a group on Saturday Night Live a long time ago called the Whiners. I don't know if anybody remembers them, but they would whine and say, "Yeah, I got diverticulitis." And so we would go like from school to school and whine about, "I can't exercise. I sweat when I exercise." And we took everybody's complaints and we verbalized them in a funny way. And it increased our participation in all of our programs significantly because most people want to hear a message that has some humor to it. And so that was the first happy accident. And then
So
I,
really
go ahead.
quick though,
Yeah,
one of the things that really stands out, and I think this is, do you remember how old you were when you were just randomly picking that class?
32, 32.
So I think this is a very common thing for a lot of people, is not trusting themselves. And you said you didn't trust yourself enough to find something fun
Right,
because it was something you had never known. And I think that's such a big piece of, if we're going to go outside the box of what it is that we grew up with, what it is that we've seen in our life, the models that have been presented to us,
right.
you've got to trust yourself. And so I love that you chose to, like, well, I don't trust myself, so we're just gonna leave it up
Leave it up.
to the gods. Close
Well,
my eyes and
I I
hocus
tell
pocus.
people I tell people that in high school I wasn't voted class clown. Had there been such a category, I would have been voted most likely to depress people because my role models were Sylvia Plath and Edgar Allan Poe. So it was really a jump for me. But the thing I'm proud of is that once I discovered that I was kind of good at it, I did make the leap. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, the reason I didn't know that I had this in me is that nobody had ever shown me this path. And now that I see this path, I know that I can do something with it. And so then I accidentally bought a house on the other side of the country and gave myself a year to create some kind of career out of nothing. And it worked. It's been the most fulfilled. I hadn't had a whole lot of career experience prior. I had the 12 years at the university, and I liked that career until it got boring and until I got a boss who did not at all honor my creative spirit.
I
um,
think some people out there listening and watching can totally relate to that.
right. And plus,
Uh,
it was a female, and he didn't like that either. So
ah,
I was the only female department head that did not sit well with him. So there was a little pressure on that end. But so moved across the country and decided I would, so I started writing jokes for a joke writing service, and I started doing funny greeting cards, and then I started doing keynotes. And the first humorous keynote I ever did, I did for free at a major conference, and it just lit a fire. And people started hiring me. And it's like, okay, I think this might be it. And it's funny because I knew I had the speaking chops because I was a debater and persuasive speaker in middle school and high school, but I had never tried to be funny. I was very serious, all about the facts. Let's get the facts out. And what I realize now is you can get the facts out with a sense of humor and funny stories that help people access those facts and relate to you so that they accept the message that you're trying to pass along.
yeah, it's absolutely true. And when one of the powerful things about story, especially story that brings emotion, which laughter does, is that your unconscious mind, which is where you actually hold what you know, hold your learnings. When your unconscious mind gets it, it becomes muscle memory. You learn it, you know it, it's integrated within yourself. And one of the ways that it learns and communicates is through story and metaphor. So, story is one of the most powerful learning tools there is. And if you slide in some positive emotions on top of that, you're going to have much greater retention rate of what you are actually talking about, which is incredibly powerful and
Well,
totally
one
awesome.
one of the things I like to hammer home is that humans laugh for four reasons. They're the theories of why humans laugh. But the two primary ones that account for 70% of the reasons that we laugh are called arousal relief and social bonding. And arousal relief is that we naturally process things that are negative, especially if they're minor negatives like frustration and annoyance and confusion and embarrassment. We naturally eventually find those funny, and that is not something that is done by our brain in the moment. It's done by our gut. And as anybody who studies neurology knows, your gut is making decisions. There are electrical impulses going from your gut to the rest of your body. Like if you're driving late at night on a foggy road, your stomach is actually doing the decision making, which is why when you finally stop, you get that relaxation of your stomach area. So that arousal relief is like if you're watching a horror movie and you laugh for no reason, there is a reason. And that is it's your body's way of processing the tension and letting it out. And then the other one, social bonding, is we tend to draw people closer to us. And this is where the storytelling comes in. When we share laughter with them, we're attracted more to people who share a sense of humor with us. And we also tend to be gravitate towards those people who are laughing at things that we consider funny. And that those two things are 70% of the reasons we laugh. And social bonding humor comes from your heart. It also is
Yeah.
not processed as funny. It's like, oh my God, I haven't seen this person in so long. And you just burst out laughing. And there's really nothing funny. And as a comedian who also does stand up and improv, I know that dividing line because comedy comes primarily from incongruity, which is theory number 3, which is how we take things that go wrong and intentionally find funny in them. But the fact that most of the things we laugh at to survive and
Mm.
to create bonds with people, which is vital to survival. And I think so many people think of laughter is something that, we'll do that when we watch a comedian. Really, you get together with your friends and play a game, you're going to have a lot more laughter because it's about arousal relief and social bonding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, as we think about the beginnings of you stepping into comedy, you started doing stand up. And I believe that sometimes these obstacles that are in our way are meant to help us open our perspective so that we see outside of what is those things that we know, right? That standard, okay, you go, you do the standard comedy circuit, and eventually you become a stand up comedian. Maybe you'll get on Saturday Night Live and blah, 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 whatever the standard thing that people would think you would do with comedy. What got in your way of doing maybe that so-called normal comedy route?
Patriarchy. The world of stand-up comedy is very male driven. And it doesn't help that I started doing stand up in cowboy bars in Texas, where people like had not only rifle racks in their cars, but on the backs of their chairs, as I like to say. No, the world of stand up is not the kind of thing that appealed to me. First of all, it's late at night, people are drunk. Most people who go to a stand up comedy show are either looking to hook up with somebody or, drink. And those are two things. I was married at the time. And I'm not a big drinker. I have like 2 drinks a year. So being in bars is just, not something. And back then everybody smoked. And I had come from the world of wellness where we created at my university the first smoke-free campus in 1988. So the whole
Wow.
idea of going and exposing myself to all this secondhand smoke was like, I don't think so. So I needed to find, I still wanted to do it because there is a power in being able to make people laugh on purpose. That feels really good. And it's a
Yeah.
little addicting. And so I also knew that I liked sharing with others. So, I started doing the keynote speaking, but I also started teaching stand up comedy. I've been teaching stand up comedy classes for 25 years. And now they're mostly online, so I get to experience people from all over the country, which is really nice. And I both teach comedy writing for stand up, and I also teach comedy writing for people who are writing screenplays and novels because I am a published author and I have a lot of screenplays myself. It's one of the things I like to dabble in. I made my first short movie right before COVID. We were going to debut it right as COVID hit. And so we kept postponing and postponing. And finally, we just did an online debut because otherwise it would have just come out 2 years later. But so I feel like that helping other people learn how to be funny and also find avenues for being funny that don't necessarily mean you're going to open mics every night of the week,
Right.
which a lot of stand-up comics do. And if you have a full-time job and you're out till past midnight because that's how late you got on, those two things are not consistent with each other. And patriarchy raising its little head again, there are very few males who will stay home and tend to the family for their stand-up partner. Whereas there are a lot of male comics who have wives or girlfriends who actually support them either by raising the family or making money when times are lean. And so it was imperative to me, I think, that I found a way to make enough money to feel that I could support myself, which is good because I'm single at this point, and I've had to support myself for the past 14 years. Yay, 14 years of singleness. Here's my best single joke. I wish somebody had told me how great it was to be single. For example, like when I make a tray of brownies, I eat a tray of brownies. The same goes for margaritas. They can be hard to drink out of a tray, but if you put your mind to it, you can do that.
So you ended up buying a house by accident. So there
Yes.
are a number of things that have just accidentally unfolded in your life. I think this is a valuable thing to notice, take note of, and to allow in one's life, because people get so hung up on this is what I have to do and it has to look like this and then this and
Right.
then this and then and you miss such great opportunities if you've got those blinders on and you have it all figured out of how it's supposed to be. And when you do that, you miss opportunities to close your eyes and pick a class. You miss.
You really do. I mean, I remember I got to interview Sarah Weddington of Roe versus Wade, that the lawyer.
Wow.
This was years after Roe versus Wade, and one of the things she said when I was asking about her career path post the Supreme Court decision was that she always said left the door open to opportunity, and that just kind of sunk into my subconscious, I think, because I remember being on the plane after. So I accidentally bought a house on vacation with like three with 3 hours before I had to catch a plane back to Houston. And I remember talking to a stranger on the plane. What have I done? I can't live here. I don't know anybody. I don't have a job. And he was very supportive. He says, well, clearly this was what you're meant to do. And it's like, I don't know how he knew that, but it really calmed me down. And I had 9 months before I had to move because the people who sold the house were building another house. And in that time, I was able to not only shed all the things I had as responsibilities. I had a lot of responsibilities at my job. In fact, I did my job half time from across the country for 6 months, something that nobody was doing back then. Now everybody does it, but because they couldn't find anybody to do the work that I was doing. But in that 9 months, I also kind of just started plotting what is it that I can do that is going to make me be successful now that I have accidentally fallen into a new hole. And I want to explore what's in here.
So I'm curious. So I know Richard Branson sort of accidentally bought his island. He was going island he was going island shopping, but more as something for fun, because that's one of his like high values is fun and learning.
Right,
And then this island was for sale and he put an offer in and then they accepted it and then all of a sudden he had to figure it out.
right.
So how did you end up accidentally buying the house? What
Okay.
actually led to that? Because
Okay.
yeah.
So my then husband and I um, took a belated honeymoon to the Pacific Northwest. I had lived in Bellevue, Washington for a year, and I kind of wanted to go back. He, however, wanted to move basically into his mother's basement because he was 9 years younger than me at the time. Well, he's still 9 years younger than me, but now he's an older guy. And that was not going to happen. I was not going to move to Indiana. Sorry, Indiana, I just can't move to you. I need a mountain and I need an ocean, and I wasn't getting that from Houston either. And so we went to Seattle. We drove to Portland, which was on the plan, and then we went down the Coast Highway, which is also on the plan. But we had to get back to I-5 to get to the airport, and we had like 10 hours. And so one of the ways to do that is to go through Eugene, which is where I live. And Eugene was not even on our itinerary. So we basically accidentally ended up in Eugene and we had like 8 hours. And we're just driving around and we saw this house that had a creek in the backyard. And I've always wanted a creek. And they had a for sale sign. And I said, well, let's just, on a goof, let's just call the realtor. She probably won't even come. She was there in like 5 minutes. We looked at the house. It was really not much to. It's this house, which is much better because I have fixed it up. But it was not much to look at. But it was on a creek, and I wasn't going to have to live with my mother-in-law in the basement. So there were some precipitating factors, and I managed to talk my husband into signing an offer before we had to hit I-5 to get back to the airport. So we had like 3 hours before our flight was leaving when we signed an offer. And then about 2 weeks later, we got the house.
Wow. It and this is one thing. People going back to that need for play and that need for fun is somebody else that might have been like, well, more stuffy, maybe like your old you might have been like, well, we have to just let's go to the airport and sit there or go to a restaurant right nearby and da da da. But instead, you were open to having fun and playing. And what I've seen time and time again is the best opportunities happen when you're not expecting them, when you are just living your life, feeling good, having natural, normal connections with people, not these forced things like I have to go to this networking event and I have to make sure that I talk to that person and that person over there, instead of just enjoying yourself and letting
Right.
yourself be the free you that you actually are.
Well, and that's what I talk about of being your playful self because we have that in us. That's the way most of us were as children. One of the reasons that children laugh so much is at novelty. So when something new happens in their life, they laugh at it, even though we would judge it as not funny. Uh, if you see me keep looking down, I have a puppy here who makes me laugh all the time, who's insisting that I say hello to him. So I've been scratching his head, trying to keep him off of my lap. But that inner playful child is open to novelty and open to difference in plans, whereas adults we fear that tends to be one of our biggest fears is we have our agenda planned out and we must stick to it. And I think you're absolutely right. It's when you're just open to the universe and playful with the things that the universe might offer up to you. Because the universe offers up some strange stuff that could be absolutely where you need to go.
Absolutely. It's funny, I think about my own childhood, and I, I had a pretty major traumatic event happen when I was 4.5 years old, and it shut down my joy. And I don't remember, for the most part, I was super serious after that. And when I finally started remembering time before that, when I was able to sort of heal some of that trauma and access some of the time before that, and I remember this moment where I felt this unbridled joy. And I was like, that is what I'm trying to return to. And,
That is
yeah.
exactly the same with me because now that, so my parents got divorced when I was 7. And then my mom got remarried 4 more times, and my dad got remarried 3 more times. And we kept having new people introduced. And I felt like I had to be not only the mother figure in between, because my mom left, and so we were raised by my father, but I was the most the oldest girl, so I was mother in between that. And also I felt like I had to kind of be the one in charge of making sure all the new people got along with one another because here's 3 more siblings we're now related to this year that will probably be gone in 2 years, but let's all try to enjoy each other. So I was very, very serious. And so it came as a delightful reaction to me that I even had any of that joy left in me. And I had so much. That repression, I think, doesn't that joy that you're subconsciously repressing because of a traumatic life event, I think it's all there and you just need to uncork it. And
Yep.
maybe you're not going to uncork it yourself because you don't know how, but if you're open to life letting something in to uncork it for you, it's going to be so much better the choices that lay before you if you do it that way.
Yeah, being able to access that part of you. It is one of our gifts is to have a full range of emotion. And I think because so many people learn to stuff their emotions, and they numb their emotions with TV, with alcohol, with checking out, and like dissociating, all kinds of things. I mean, the laundry list of ways that we avoid our emotions is
Right.
like, it is
Well, and if you think about psychology, so the field of psychology has studied mostly just the negative emotions.
right.
I think the last time I looked, it was like 93% of all psychological studies have been on negative emotions. Imagine if they studied what is it that makes people who can experience joy and feel gratitude and share those things with other people and just be that light in other people's life. If we study what makes them tick and how we can access more of that, I think we would. There's this, there's this feeling a lot in the psychological community that if you laugh too much, you're hiding your pain. A lot of us are processing our pain, and we're doing it in a way that is maybe not culturally acceptable as some other ways of processing pain, but it's very valuable, and it exposes us to more of the playfulness and joy that life has to bring us. I remember I was teaching a seminar for seniors, not high school seniors, people who are older. And it was a 4-week class, and this woman kind of dragged her husband to it. And every day he was wearing gray sweatshirt and sweatpants with not even a logo on it, just gray sweats. And he just kept talking about how he was just so depressed. And so on the second week, I said, "Do you have anything in your wardrobe at all that is not gray?" And he said, "Yeah, I have some Hawaiian shirts, but I haven't worn them in like 20 years. And I said, "I would like you to do an experiment and wear a Hawaiian shirt every day until next week when you show up to class, and wear one there too. And just let me know how you feel." And he came in and he's like, "It was remarkable. People came up to me and said nice things to me because I'm wearing a shirt that made me look like a person they wanted to talk to, rather than, an old gray sweat that everybody just kind of sees you blending into the." It can be as easy as that sometimes, just changing your wardrobe. Notice the paint colors on my walls. Everything is bright and happy, and everybody who walks in here says two things. One, it is so bright and happy, and so you. And two, I wish I were brave enough to do that. And it's like, brave? It
That's
takes
the thing.
courage to paint a wall sky blue.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. So when people depress their emotions, right? What are we actually doing when we're depressed? We're depressing our emotions. But when you do the things that numb or depress or stuff your emotions, it does not, it numbs the joy too. And that's what people don't understand. Like, oh, I feel like crap, so I'm going to have a few couple drinks. I had a terrible day, so I'm going to have a couple drinks, or I'm going to zone out and binge watch TV. And what that does is it depresses your joy and your positive emotions too. It's all linked when you're pushing that stuff down.
Right.
And what you wear is so indicative of
Here, this is the
what's
whole
going on inside. Yeah, exactly. And I'm wearing like all black today, but I'm like, oh, but it's funny. I spent years behind a bar, and I would always wear black because my black clothes wouldn't get ruined.
right.
And now that not being behind a bar, and because I've done so much healing and releasing of the negative emotions and unleashing the joy, that I want to wear. I'm like, why don't they have this in pink or purple or some other color? I'm not gonna go beige. I'll do.
I got a pair of clogs that are lime green, and they were in a kids catalog. So they only had kid sizes. So I called them up and I said, "Do you have these in adult sizes? Because I don't have small feet." And they didn't, but they knew who did. So I own this pair of lime green clogs now because I wanted them because they were lime green. But I was the same way. In all the years where I was suppressing my joy, I wore nothing but brown and gray and beige, things I don't even consider colors. I consider, things like beige to be an expression of a need for help. Every I watch HGTV, I want to do a psychological profile on these people who want everything beige. It's like, you really need to go to therapy.
It's
But
funny. Here's,
so,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, there's this little experiment I do that kind of tells people, when people say chin up, like why they say chin up is because your body has a neurological response to where you look. So I would always do this, like close your eyes and picture a beige wall, right? As neutral as you can get. So you close the eyes and picture the beige wall. And then still seeing the beige wall in your mind, look down. And you'll notice that the beige wall got even more depressing. And then as you still see the beige wall with your eyes closed, like bring your head back up to normal, look at the beige wall in your mind, and then look up. And you'll notice somehow beige got a little bit happier.
It turned pink. Honest to God, it turned pink.
So there is a reason, if you are like those little things, like you said, like putting on the colorful shirt or walking down the street with your head down. I'm in New York, so we walk everywhere.
Oh,
um,
I'm a walker, so I walk a lot.
yeah. So you see people walking with their head down, and people will be like, "Oh, put your head up, chin up." And that comes because it will literally elevate your mood.
Yeah. So I have a dog ripping into something, so I'm going to grab
Grab
it
the
from you.
dog.
And what he's ripping into is a stuffed dog that I took off the counter so it wasn't cluttering up the space behind me. But so I am going to be 66 next month, and I wear my hair in pigtails a lot. I have a picture of me when I was like 3, before all of the joy was sucked out of me, where I'm wearing pigtails and I've got overalls and I'm leaning over and I got a big smile on my face. And so one of the things I've suggested to people who feel like they don't have a connection to who they were as a child is find a picture of yourself when you were happy as a kid and put it in your wallet so that every time you pull out your driver's license or your credit card for something, you see it and you have that visual reminder. And so I've just taken it to, like, I want to dress and look like that person as much as possible. And remarkably, I still think I look like that, but I am delusional. It helps a little bit to have a little bit of delusion in your life.
It's really funny that you talk about that picture, before the joy was sucked out of you. I remember one in my own healing journey that, led me to doing all the things to unwind and heal all the trauma for myself. And now I do, of course, for other people. But one of the pivotal moments is I had this like moment of a memory of me being on the front porch drawing some world on paper, and I could feel what it felt like to be me before any of the pain. I could feel what it felt like to have all the possibilities of the universe, of the world at my fingertips. And I knew deep down inside who I truly was, who I was meant to be, and that anything was possible. And so I used that memory. I stepped into it over and over, and I used it on my path. I mean, my path was long, a long journey of trying all the things to try to feel better and reclaim my joy of it, essentially. But I used that because I remembered every time I would do something or try something, did this bring me closer to that feeling, or did it take me farther away? So it sort of acted as a light, like a lighthouse, if you will. And so I love that you said, find a picture of you before all the joy was sucked out of you. So as we like near the end, this goes so fast. Like,
It does.
why
It
does
seems
it
like we
always
just
go so
started.
fast? So if you were going to give your past self, the serious self, or anybody that's struggling to find their joy and be open to those happy accidents that can make all the difference in your world, if you were going to give your past self or these people some piece of advice, what would it be? What would you tell them?
Well, I think the most important thing is to know what brings you joy now. A lot of us don't even know that, especially if we
True.
spend most of our time living in suppression of emotion or depression of emotion. So I used to say to people a lot, make a list. Make a list of 10 things that are guaranteed. Like there is a place here. It's a waterfall. I do a lot of waterfall walking with my dogs. And there but this one waterfall just connects and makes I can't get the smile off of my face. It's just the weirdest thing. There's nothing, there's no people there. I'm not smiling to impress anybody. I just connect so much to this place. So that would be on my list. I have 3 friends that whenever I don't feel my bubbly self, they are my go-tos because they are the bubbles that I need, and I will do the same for them. So you need to make a list of things, and usually it's people and experiences. We tend to think that we can get our joy by, I don't know, working hard. That has never worked, I don't think, in that serious approach of working hard. But make a list and then just do something on that list every day. Right now, I tell people that you need to have 15 laughs out loud every day. It can't be LOL. That's lying online. That is not laughter.
Lying online. I always write ha 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 because that's like what I actually feel. Like I
Right.
feel
But
the
are you
laughter bubble.
if you're not expressing it, you're not actually getting the physiological rush that laughter produces. You're not getting all of the good endorphins and all of the good hormones, and you're not getting the movement of oxygen from your butt back to your brain because it's settled in your butt because you've been sitting on it. You've got to actually do what you did, which is throw your head back and laugh. So you need 15 of those. And I also recommend that all adults get 10 minutes every day of play. And
Yes.
I define that as it has to be physical, which means, Angry Birds, Candy Crush, those things don't count. It has to make you laugh. So that means golf and tennis, probably not, even though they're physical. It has to be an adventure, meaning you're not so accustomed to doing it, it's boring. And last, you have to feel young while you're doing it. So I remember I did a photo shoot, a professional photo shoot for a book cover, and I asked the guy if we could meet on the playground at the school next to me. This is about 15 years ago. I have chronic frozen shoulder issues because I used to be a gymnast and I worked the uneven bars and I just really ruined my shoulders. And I forgot about that. And I got on the what do you call those?
The
The
monkey bars.
bars. Monkey bars.
The
I got
monkey
on the
bars.
monkey bars and I hung upside down from my knees, and that's how we did the photo shot, the photo shoot. But then I couldn't get out of it because you basically have to roll through your shoulders. And I had like a 5-year-old boy up there trying to coach me to get down from the monkey bar. And it's like still one of my favorite things to think about because here is this 50-year-old woman who has gotten herself in a predicament that she needs a 5-year-old boy to tell her how. It could have been a girl. I wish it had been a girl, but in this case, it was a 5-year-old boy telling me how to get out of this predicament.
I love that. I love
But
that.
get 10 minutes of play. And that's one of the reasons that, we do that when we have young kids in the house. And we do that. A lot of us do that if we have animals. So I'm really lucky that I have animals that are very playful. 2 wiener dogs. That's why I have a stuffed wiener dog that usually sits on my shelf. um, but one of the things we do naturally when approaching a very young child or a smaller animals, we drop to our knees, which physically puts us in the perspective we had when we were about 3.
Right.
And you get more playful when you're on the floor than when you're leaning over and being the adult. So like
Yeah.
when I play toss with my dogs, I often sit on the floor and play toss, and then it ends up being tug because we're on the floor. I'm not standing. I'm not in a chair. I'm on the floor with them.
Great. Okay, so what are the things that you offer? What can people hire you for? What are your classes? Tell us all the things about how to get in touch with you and what you
I usually,
offer.
I usually tell people you can hire me for anything but pole dancing, but that's not really true.
How about monkey bar dancing?
Monkey bar dancing, I might need another 5-year-old to coach me out of it because I'm even older than I was then. So basically, I do one-on-one consultations for people trying to find the joy. So that's something that they can hire me to do. I am a comedy writing coach, and so slash editor. It's weird to be a comedy editor, but I just finished helping a woman who had never written a novel before create the concept for a novel. Talk about a big leap for her. She wanted to write about her family and nobody would believe it because it was so crazy. So I suggested she novelize it and it's worked out wonderfully. So there's that. I also do presentations for groups. Right now I'm usually only doing those online unless you happen to be in my town because I still don't think air travel is makes much sense. I think we still have a COVID issue. I do have a master's in public health with a minor in epidemiology, and it's not over. I have two friends who just traveled by air and came down with COVID on the way home. So I'm doing that on Zoom. It's working really well. I've done small groups. We did 6 the other day, and I did one for 1,500 people. So to help organizations really get a more joyful attitude among the people who are working there and start treating everybody more kindly. That's really what I am into, helping people do and experience.
Love it. And where did they find you?
So my website is accidentalcomic.com. You can also read a lot of my writings there. You can order my books, but I blogged and wrote. I was the content director and senior editor for the Syndrome Mag, which was a feminist humor zine. And so there's a lot of my, you can hit the links to those articles. And so there's a lot you can do there.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And
All right.
I am totally happy with people emailing me too. So if you want to email me and ask me a question, my email is lajfun@accidentalcomic.com.
All right. lajfun@accidental.comic.com. And Leanne, this
I'm going
time
to say
went by.
this is how I
Yes.
feel about today. This is Tigger. He sits on my desk to remind me to be Tigger. And I feel very connected with you.
I
I'm
love it.
jumping for joy.
Tigger was one of my spirit animals for a long time. And when I used to go to Burning Man, you have like sort of a Burning Man name, and my Burning Man name was Bounce Bounce.
Oh, that's so great. I have a vanity license plate that is Wag Wag because it reminds me to keep wagging, even though I
I
don't have a
love,
tail.
love it, love it. All right, Leanne, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will see you all next time on Be the Wolf.